Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. So we've got a bit of a different episode today. We're talking about the London Legends GT being held on the 29th and 30th of April in DarkSphere Megastore in London. And there are actually still tickets available. So check out the link in the description below. I'll stick it down there. I'm here today with friend, colleague, and fellow wargamer, Dr. Luke Blaxill. Good evening.
Good evening, Simon.
How's it going?
Yeah, very well. I'm really excited by for a long time played in a lot of tournaments, but never actually organized one myself. And so this is going to be, I think, a really fascinating little experiment and learning experience as well.
And it looks like it's the first one in London for a while.
Exactly. In the time that I've been playing Warhammer competitively, which is probably about 5 years, there has never been a London tournament. It's really been a kind of a notable omission. And so it's really cool to actually be organizing something like this in the capital city.
Absolutely. And I think you came up with the name London Legends. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. So the reason it's called London Legends, as well as being just objectively a really cool name, obviously, is that really this, not just the city of London, but also this very area of London is really where, the legend of Games Workshop at any rate began. Right in 1975, in 97 Uxbridge Road, which is just up the road from the venue, Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone began the first Games Workshop store, which was ran out of their flat. And then a few years later, the first actual branch of Games Workshop in Hammersmith opened. And so while it wasn't until 1983 that the first edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, or Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing Mass Battle, as it was originally called, was released, nonetheless, in a certain manner of speaking, the legend did begin here just up the road.
I think my first encounter with Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone was those role-playing books. Do you remember where you would
Fighting Fantasies?
Fighting Fantasy?
I own the
you
whole series, Simon.
Yeah,
Don't worry about that. All of the green spines, 1 to 59, including all of the ultra rares. But that's probably where they're most famous nowadays. But there's actually released a book called Dice Men quite recently, where they told the origin story of Games Workshop, which is also a really cool read.
Recently? How recently?
Oh, last year.
Oh, okay, right.
Months ago, actually.
Cool. All right, so the London Legends tournament. I'm looking forward to it. We've got a few months to go already, but we're already getting a lot of interest. So we thought we'd just do a quick video, have a bit of chat about the format of the tournament, a bit about Shepherd's Bush. And I guess let's just dive right in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you should also say that even though it's just me, Dr. Luke Blaxill, and Simon D6 Wounds on this video today, we do have a third organizer who is Mark Murfield, who is the author of the Back to the Hammer blog and also appears as Noffel's Silvertop, which is the name of his long-suffering dwarf general, on the 8th edition for Live Forum. And so we've got a real blend, I think, of experience, I think incorporating around 176 years of combined competitive gaming. And so, got although we might not have run a tournament before, we've certainly played a lot of Warhammer before. So, we're hoping that that's going to translate into a smoothly run event.
Yeah, absolutely. And big shout out to the Triple Crown guys, because of course we're using the majority of that comp system.
Exactly. Triple Crown comp system, has become, I suppose, the industry standard. All of, players have their, their quirks and their misgivings about it in some cases, cough, prophetess on foot, cough. But nonetheless, we still really love the Triple Crown comp system. You can you'll be able to see that in our comp pack, but it is exactly the same as the Triple Crown comp system. And it also includes, of course, a monstrous compendium as well, which are some monsters from the Storm of Magic and the Monsters Arcanum expansions that you can also include in your armies as rare choices.
Yeah, I suppose the sort of the key features I would say is that it's 25% Lords and Heroes, which is pretty standard. I've obviously seen events where they've got 50% Lords of Heroes, and you do tend to get some sort of quirky lists in there from time to time. And of course, no end times. Now, I'm someone who just likes to pretend that end times never actually happened. But I understand that might be a bit different for some people. I haven't really seen that many sort of end times lists or big end times characters
Yeah,
around?
I think that in a narrative perspective, I think most people probably agree with you. They would probably wish the end times hadn't happened. You know, the books were, you know, garbage basically, and also, yeah, I suppose they precede the destruction of, as they
Yeah.
call it, that was. There are a few things in the end times units that are a bit more common. Like, for example, you know, we do know that some armies, you know, do like their end times units a bit more than others. We know, like Skaven, for example, with their Storm Fiends, you know, obviously like a really powerful kind of end times unit. But
Yeah, you see them. Yeah.
so, you know, we do know that some of the decisions we've taken, you know, do hurt some armies more than others. But that's, you know, unfortunately, that's, I guess, the luck of the draw, unfortunately. And I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunity to use your super broken, overpowered Storm Fiends in other events.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's just a preference, really. I think there's lots of different events now, isn't there? There's kind of like a full calendar of Warhammer Fantasy events, at least in 2023, and so people can sort of pick and choose what suits them. But I've always found that there doesn't seem to be a particular, you know, type of list or um, you know, Death Star armies or, you know, huge characters or anything like that, which is sort of dominating the tournament scene in any way. I mean, you tend to get a good variety of different types of armies, and, you know, different armies win different tournaments, and, you know, that's what I like about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are some stronger ones, of course, you know, who you know, tend to do a bit better. But nonetheless, there is a fairly kind of even spread. And I think that the point of you know, the sort of the comp system is to try and let, you know, even the weaker armies, you know, have a little bit of a chance. And, you know, we're not saying that they're competing on even terms exactly, but at the same time, you know, if you are playing with, you know, Chaos Dwarves or Bretonians or Khorne Demons or whatever it might be, you know, the things are leveled out a little bit so that, you know, you can have much more of a chance than I think you would, you know, if it was uncomped.
Yeah, and we discussed sort of making changes to the comp system. I mean, everybody sort of has their own ideas about how to tweak it here and there, or their own biases as well. And I think we just decided in the end we'll just stick with what people are used to. And, you know, if things turn out to you know, this event is a success, which I see no reason why it wouldn't be at the moment, then, you know, next year we can sort of plan on if anything needs tweaking in any certain way.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even though we've kept the comp system exactly the same, you know, we do have some much more significant changes, I think, with the missions, which is really, I think, the real kind of, you know, real from a purely gaming perspective, the more unique aspect of the London Legends GT will come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And those scenarios as well, I think they're using the Cardiff Crusade, is it?
They are. I mean, if you like, Simon, you could just scroll down to
Yeah, we can go
at
back
the
to
end,
that.
and I'll just we could actually just say a little bit about them. Some of these are lifted from Ninth Age for players who have played that, but we've got 5 games, and all of them will have missions in them. Those missions are dependent on fortitude, and to be a fortitude bearing unit, you need to have a standard bearer, and it depends a little bit what kind of a unit you are, but Simon's very helpfully placed it here. Infantry with 10 models, cav with 5 models, or 10 if it's fast cav. Monstrous infantry and monstrous cavalry with 3 models, and ditto chariots. Also, the BSB can also create a fortitude bearing unit as well. That's a departure from Cardiff. If he joins a unit at the time it meets those criteria, and he's still alive, and at least one guy from the unit is still alive. So that gives you a little bit more option. But those fortitude points are relevant for all of these 5 games. The first one we've got, if you could just scroll down.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I won't talk much about the deployment, but this is the center of the board one, sometimes called King of the Hill in old money. You've got to get a fortitude bearing unit there within 6 inches of the center of the board to gain 750 victory points. And all of these missions are worth 750 VPs. That is a lot of victory points in a 2,500 point game. So,
Yeah,
you know,
it's very significant, isn't it?
Incentive there to, you could still get a good win without getting the mission, but, you know, for maximum points, you really should be. Interesting one, this one, because, you know, some of these missions where you have to get within, say, 6 inches of a marker, sometimes there's an argument for going second in those kind of games, actually, because you've got move in. So that's kind of also interesting. It's not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
always,
Yeah, I've played this scenario before. I just like how the counters stack up each turn rather than just at the end of the game or something like that. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Then we got the, the classic kind of, dawn assault here. It's corner to corner kind, well, not corner to corner deployment, but sort of,
Yeah.
a block in each corner deployment, or with a sort of an empty space in each deployment zone. And the mission there is breakthrough. Get units into your opponent's deployment zone. It's a mobility based one. Obviously, it's good for faster armies. Can be a problem for dwarves, this one. But as I say, swings and roundabouts. So yeah, 750 for that as well. The next one here, we've got counter thrust as the deployment. That's an interesting one. The way you deploy is your enemy has to be at least 20 inches away from you. So there's sometimes an argument for sticking a piece up there quite boldly at the beginning if you've got the first drop, so that you can push your opponent back 20 inches away. So
yeah, that's interesting as well, because if someone deploys on one side of the table, you can get your model actually, what will it be, 16 inches up.
That's true.
The other side of the table, yeah.
That's true. You can get a bit closer if they don't try and push you back. So it's a bit more of an interactive deployment, that, I think. Mission here, Desecrate the Holy Ground. This is a really cool mission. I really like this one. You pick a terrain piece that's outside of your deployment zone, and your opponent does vice versa, and you have to have a scoring unit in it at the end of the game. If you've got it and your opponent hasn't, you win. Obviously, if you've both got it or neither of you have got it, it's a draw. Really nice, really cool kind of mission that really makes sort of terrain, I think, important. Game 4 here, the deployment is in circle. Simon's made this really cool diagram here. It looks a bit more complicated than it is, but essentially you either have a big middle or big sides, and you're obviously who gets that. And this
it kind of, the original diagram looked a bit complicated, so I kind of simplified it a bit, but it's
incomprehensible, the original diagram.
Exactly, yeah. It kind of measured, sometimes it was measuring the distance in the middle, sometimes the distance at the side, but it kind of, my first impression of this was it's just a bit gimmicky, like, okay, what does it matter? But I remember playing on this versus Druze Bretonians, and I managed to get, I think I was actually the attacker. I was playing with and I was going to deploy at the back of the board anyway. So I thought I'll go for this attacker side where I've got the flanks to kind of lap around. And I managed to get a gyrocopter sort of right in the corner there, where the corner cuts out, and just sort of fly over the top on turn one. So you can sort of have a bit of
you can try and run fast stuff around the flanks, like, say, if you've got like a Death Star in you're the defender, you can like put the Death Star boldly like further forwards than you normally would, maybe try and have it more of an effect in the game. So I think there are some options here for slow moving armies and fast moving armies as well. That's quite interesting. And what's the mission on this one? You just got to
capture the flags.
So this is quite sort of a usual one. You have to kill enemy fortitude. Note, if you've got less than 3 scoring units, then your opponents can pick what they have to destroy, which means they could pick, like some Chaos Hounds or some like a very weak unit. So there's again a bit of an incentive here to make sure you've got those 3 scoring units in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then game 5 is the classic refused flank, the one that the one where take measure like knocks over all the models and all the rest of this one.
That's the one.
It's a bit of it makes for a good game, but it's a bit annoying to set up. Also, you're within 18 of each other, diagonal sides. And the mission here is secure target, which is the so-called 2 penny scenario, where you both basically place a marker on the board that's 12 inches away from your DZ, and then your opponent reciprocates, but it has to be 24 inches away. And then you have to get scoring units within 6 inches of it at the end of the game. So, again, it's a bit like the first one in that sometimes there's an argument for going second here because you can move up to the objectives in the last turn. So some really interesting, I think some extra interesting stuff. And as I say, rewarding it with 750 VPs, I really like, because I like a focus on missions. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that'll have a big effect on the actual sort of army composition that you see?
I think that the main way is that we're making it harder, I think, to not take fortitude bearing units.
Yeah,
And again, some armies are harmed by this or advantaged slightly more than others. I mean, some are Warriors of Chaos player. Warriors of Chaos are a really good army anyway, but they're not a bit weaker with fortitude. The reason for that is
yeah,
because we tend to have a smaller number of elite units, and
yeah,
so we don't get as many banners. Some armies like elves are also really good with this anyway, because a lot of their strong options have banners anyway. But other armies that are a bit a bit weaker, sometimes they can also get quite a lot of banners on things. It's good for my Bretonians, I think. Apart from the fact that our banners cost more than other armies, but never mind about
this
that.
is true.
It's a bit unfair, but nonetheless, there's a lot of fast moving banners in Bretonia, and so that's good for them. Also, advantages maybe multiple smaller units a little bit
Yeah,
to get a bit more fortitude down on the board.
I always think about orcs and goblins as well, because they've kind of got to think about animosity and stuff. So it kind of helps them to have one big unit as opposed to lots of smaller units.
Yeah, that's true. I think any Death Star build is slightly disadvantaged by that, and
Yeah,
and I'm not going to complain, because Death Star's good enough as it is for all sorts of other reasons. So I think that might help. I think more people might go for perhaps normal cavalry. So generally, normal cavalry isn't that well used in 8th Ed because it's not very good. I mean, things like Chaos Knights, Empire Knights, some of the heavier Dark Elf cavalry, even though that's not bad. Fast cavalry is very common in 8th Ed, but heavy cavalry is a bit less common. And with this, your fast cav need 10 to score, and so hence you can't really use the chaff units in the same way. But with heavy cavalry, you can have 5. And so
yeah,
maybe we might see a bit of heavy cavalry in there. A few more Empire armies taking knights, for example. Orcs maybe taking boar boys, these sorts of things, because you only need 5 models with those to score. So I hope that we might see a few more, seldom seen units. But it's
yeah.
up to players to try and break our system as efficiently as they can. I'm sure they'll make us look silly by the end of it.
Yeah, yeah, and we've got a sort of wide variety of players coming, haven't we? Some very experienced people, but also some people who are quite new to the hobby, or people who
Yeah.
haven't played in a long time.
I think there's a really nice mix, and if you're you've not been to a tournament before, and you're thinking about jumping back in, by all means do so, because we will have some less experienced players at this tournament, and the way the tournament pairings work is you each play players who have similar results to you, and so if you
Yeah,
get your ass handed to you by like a pro in the first game, you'll be playing someone who is probably also less experienced in the second game, and so you'll have some good games. It won't just be serial kind of lambs to the slaughter, and there will also just be some other less experienced people there as well. But at the same time, on the other end, yeah, we've definitely got some experienced dudes coming, including some people I think who were big players going back 5-6 years or something, who have decided to dust off their toys and come back into battle, and that's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Got to watch out for the painting competition as well. Perhaps there's some armies that are unseen on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, generally in the UK scene, I don't know how many players we've got, probably, I don't know, 100 or something regulars. And we know, I guess, the people who have got the armies that are the really sexy armies, and there are many very, very, very nice armies. Generally, we've seen them, but, maybe, if we've got some new players coming in, then perhaps there'll be some beautiful armies to look at that we've not seen before. And, that's one of the most exciting things. And it goes without saying, guys, there is a painting prize as well. Which is so it's not just all about gaming as well. We've got a prize for painting too, and it'll be pretty good prize, I think. So there's absolutely a reason to attend there, even if you're a bro painter but a bit rusty with the rules. By all means, still come. Everyone loves to see a well painted square based army.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we're down in Shepherd's Bush DarkSphere Megastore. It's a big place, isn't it? I think we've got like 20 tables, but I think there'll be other things going on at the same time.
It's
And,
a really really big venue. It's very surprising for somewhere so central in London to have such a big venue like this.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, we've got 20 tables, but the venue is much, much bigger than that. And so, you know, it's a really, really cool venue. You know, good variety of terrain. You know, really, really big space. It's also a really good shop as well, actually. You know, good prices as well if you want to go. You want to go
there are
shopping.
big discounts, aren't there? Yeah, all the new stuff.
Yeah, it's often really, really good for that. You know, sometimes they have like secondhand, well, not secondhand stuff, but stuff that's, you know, near the end of its product life, like paints that they sell for, you know, really, really small sums. So it's a nice place to go shopping, actually, for a hobbyist as well. So yeah, it's really cool. It's in the W12 shopping center, which has got you know, it's got Lidl in it. Yeah, it's got you know,
Yeah,
a cafe in it. It's got a pub in it as well, you know, at the top, or Weatherspoons.
yeah. Shepherd's Bush is kind of one of those areas where you could be sort of walking down the high street and see your normal sort of crowded London street chicken shops and the rest of it, and think, oh, what's going on here? But then, of course, you got Westfield's very nearby, lots of people coming down to that area for that reason. You've got the West London, your Notting Hill, Holland Park sort of thing just down the road as well. And so you've got lots of things going on in the area, and also a night scene there as well.
Absolutely. If you like the diversity of London neighbourhoods, Shepherd's Bush is absolutely for you. I mean, this is, you know, I lived in Shepherd's Bush a few years ago, and absolutely. I mean, it's got some posh stuff in it, absolutely, since Westfield opened in particular, but then also, you know, some of the bit more kind of urbany down at heel kind of stuff you'd expect in, you know, a quite sort of a diverse kind of London neighborhood. And so there will be some, you know, interesting dinner choices around in the local area. You know, there's quite a lot of good Middle Eastern restaurants in Shepherd's Bush, for example, you know, which goes kind of, you know, way back into the area's kind of sort of historic identity. And, you know, it's a party place as well. You know, if you're a partier come gamer, then yeah, you've got the delights of the Shepherd's Bush empire, and then probably some other much cooler and hipper places that I don't know about. It's absolutely, you know, it's all there.
We'll have to see like where people are coming from, what they're up for doing on the Saturday night. Maybe even, you know, if enough people are up for it, book some place to eat and drink, you know, after the games are finished. I know a lot of people might have their stuff with them. I mean, that might be a kind of, I don't want to say a worry, but a kind of an extra thing that people are thinking about going to a tournament in London. Perhaps you're, you know, used to being able to you know, access your gaming store very easily, you know, drive up, put your stuff in a box, stick it in the boot of your car, and you know, drive up to the gaming store car park. Whereas, you know, if you're near central London, it is a bit more tricky. You know, parking's expensive, there's loads of people everywhere, there's a congestion charge or whatever else. I mean, the easiest way to get there is on the tube, but I think, you know, for people coming outside, you might just want to stay somewhere nearby anyway, and there are loads of hotels around that area. I think there was actually, I was looking on Google Maps, there's actually an Ibis in the W12 building. So there's lots of different options.
There are some options. Yeah, Central Line Station or the Overground Station are literally 3 minutes away from the venue. I mean, they are. It's literally right slap bang on top of it. I mean, of course, maybe this is a reason why London hasn't seen so many wargaming tournaments, because of the difficulties of parking. But the shopping centre does have parking. I know it's expensive, but at the same time, at least it's there, and so you won't be far away from your car. If you want a bit of a longer walk and cheaper parking, you can park in Westfield as well, but you probably need to walk about, I don't know, 5-7 minutes with your stuff to get into DarkSphere. Absolutely.
It was funny when we were sort of thinking about what date to choose. The calendar was pretty busy, isn't it? And we're sort of looking at the different weekends and thinking, you know, you don't want to do it the following weekend from another event, because, you know, people travel, and, you know, it's a bit of an effort for that weekend. Okay, so a brief interlude there. As I was saying, it's just the planning of the days was a bit difficult, because obviously you don't want to have your 2-day event weekend adjacent to another 2-day event. So you've got to sort of think about how you're spacing it out around the year. And we ended up clashing with the Box of Frogs guys on their Lustria narrative event, which is a bit unfortunate. Don't know if it's quite the same type of person who wants to go to a competitive event or go to the narrative event, but I suppose there would be some people, you know, in the community who would have liked to go to both. So perhaps we'll just have to schedule it better next time, or announce it earlier.
I mean, in a sense, it's a kind of a good thing, really. I mean, that, you know, despite we're playing a dead game here, and yet we're getting to the point where we've got, well, 2 Triple Crown GTs because they sold all the tickets, the Derby Deathmatch from Triple Crown, the Cardiff Crusade, then probably maybe another Cardiff event later in the year, us, and then also a few other, you know, slightly kind of smaller ones as well. I mean, this is a very different kind of world to what it was like, you know, 4 years ago or something, where there was pretty much just a couple of Triple Crown events, and that was all there was. And, you know, maybe 1 or 2 others organized by, you know, some enterprising folks like Mark Pete. Yeah, so it's great in a way that, you know, there are so many. A bit unfortunately.
Absolutely.
We clashed like this, but at the same time, you know, there is at least a good reason why the clash kind of happened.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't by design. Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, so I hope, I understand that the Box of Frogs is actually getting also quite a bit of interest. So hopefully there's enough food for us both to coexist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's good when you got different events in different parts of the country as well, because some people, you know, it's a bit hard to travel to Cardiff or up to Derby or whatever, so they want something down south.
No, exactly. Different types of events in different places, you know, all remarkable for a game, as I say, that's been dead for 6 years and might be coming back. So they said about 4 years ago, and unsatisfied and all the rest. But we're not going to go into that. All we can do, you know, is play the game we have. And the game we have is a pretty damn good game, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be much better than it is, quite frankly, especially with things like comp systems. So, you know, you miss it when it's gone, guys, even though you are wanting the old world to come along.
Absolutely, yeah. So at the time of recording, we've sold 24 out of 40 tickets. So there are, 16 available at the time of recording. I'll put the link in the description so people can check it out. And also, you know, come and say hi on the Facebook event page. Perhaps we can get a discussion going there about what people want to do in the area on Saturday night and stuff, and see you all there.
Or if you have any rules queries as well, like I've already received a few various rules queries from some pros on such topics as virtual pivoting and, you know, not afraid
character walls and stuff like that.
No, character walls, virtual pivoting, and all the rest of it. All really fluffy narrative things, of course. No, they're not really. They're gamey bastards. Anyway, so
but it'll be good fun. It'll be a great experience because you're sort of on the other side of the fence rather than actually playing it, actually organising the tournament, and being able to just walk around and see all the armies rather than just being really focused in your game.
Absolutely. I mean, as I say, I like playing. I'm a competitive player. You know, maybe I'll hate it. Maybe I'll just want to play. Or maybe I'll really love it. Maybe I like being like, you know, a Slough in a higher state of consciousness, you know, on his floating palanquin, looking over the, you know, kind of events, judging on rules queries and, you know, writing down, you know, sacred verses in the, you know, the tablets of the sun gods or whatever they are.
And judging the painting competition.
Judging the painting competition.
That'll be fun.
That's fun. That'll be certainly a kind of a fun for us. And so you know there'll be some cool prizes as well. I hasten to add, you know, prizes for first, second, and third place, and a painting prize as well. They should be absolutely worth having too.
All right, I'm excited. So thanks for your time, Luke. We'll have to get Mark on the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have Noffles on the next one, and we can have a fun kind of conflab. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really genuinely excited to be bringing, you know, a fantasy tournament to London, you know, to where it started, in a manner of speaking, you know, and I care about this kind of thing. I'm a historian, you know, not a doctor for nothing. And really looking forward also to the experience personally of running a tournament as well, and seeing what that's like, and maybe appreciating some of the challenges that go with that as well, which I'm sure I probably don't quite appreciate right now, but I guess I'm going to learn.
Absolutely, yeah. And see who is crowned the new London legend.
Who is crowned and who gets to write themselves in immortal script in rune into the Shepherd's Bush Megastore, just a stone's throw away from 97 Uxbridge Road, where it all started. Yeah. Who will be the new legend of London? Well, you'll have to attend on the 29th and 30th of April to find out.
Yeah, there, folks.